Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pineapple Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Kathy V. Kathy has been an avid investor in real estate. She literally started her journey from not knowing where she's going to start with, and today she's pioneering both as a woman entrepreneur and as a leader in the real estate world. Kathy, welcome to the Pineapple Podcast.
Thank you, Mitch. Wow, I feel like I need to do a little bit more work to live up to that beautiful introduction. So yeah, I did start with nothing or not knowing anything, not with nothing, but just not knowing anything. I've made every mistake under the sun, but due to mentors and beautiful communities, here I am.
Wonderful. Look, I actually followed you and I know a bit of your story as well. But what intrigued me was that, you went down the road of owning properties and what have you. And maybe you can tell us a little bit of how that journey was. But what was intriguing was you went into the world of private lending, where you were initially a lender and then you branch off into becoming the borrower. So I think that's going to be tremendous value to our viewers as we discuss further and further. But give us an idea, Kathy, of kind of like when you went into the property ownership, what was that like for you in the beginning of your journey?
Right. So interestingly, I actually became a student landlord before I knew that was a thing. My sister and I were going to UVic in Victoria, so we asked our parents to co-sign a mortgage and buy a house. We rented it out to students, and I'm sure everybody can imagine what was going on in that house. Needless to say, a reno needed to happen. So fast forward to 2009. I had a house that was paid for, and I always thought, okay, I'm sitting on a lot of money. There's something I can do here. I know there's something. So I started with pre-sale condos, pre-construction condos. I did not know anything about pre-construction condos, but oddly, I learned very quickly. So after my first two, I knew what I was looking for, and I did go on to buy a lot more pre-construction condos. They've been great for me. They've
Yes.
really been a really great investment, very successful. I'm turning most of them into short-term executive rentals, so more of a 30-day plan. And then I went into single-family homes with suites. I'll leave it at that. Some renovations,
Yes.
flips, some new builds, things like that. And eventually, it was nowhere in my scope of my real estate journey, thoughts, or anything to ever be raising capital for anything, be a borrower. I did borrow privately from friends who wanted to be involved but didn't want property. So for a while, that was my only experience with borrowing money or private money until I fell into it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think part of all of our journeys, and especially for people who want to get into the real estate space, you got to start somewhere. And I guess eventually you'll try different strategies and everything looks appealing and you get more practice, you get better at it, and then you kind of fine tune into what you're really good at, right? Because, lending or private lending, both as a borrower and even as a lender, it's an art in the sense that you got to know what you're doing. There's certain let's say flags that you want to be aware of, because in this space you just want to make sure that the deal makes sense. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. How do you determine a deal if you're going to borrow money privately on that, right? Like, what are some of the things that you may look for in a deal that says, yep, this deal makes sense, whether it's building, renovating? Like, give us a sense of how do you look at a deal to say, yep, I'm going to fund this privately.
Yes. So the first thing I actually look at when I'm funding is the person. I always look at the person. Who am I dealing with here? The deal is almost as important to me, although not quite as important. But what I look for is what is the strategy here? So if they're looking to flip, but between their price that they've paid and comps for a completely renovated home is a very small spread. It doesn't make any sense. They're not going to make any money. So there has to be that that lift that's, you know, that makes sense in order for somebody to take on something like a flip. I always look for exit strategies. So if I would lend to somebody, they're wanting to buy a long-term rental, what's the exit strategy? How are they going to pay me back? Can they refinance? Because I think sometimes people hear through the grapevine, oh, I've heard this bank gives 90% or 95%.
Yes.
And they don't really take the time to look into that. How do they give 95%? Who do they give 95% to? And so if I finance this property 100%, which I actually never have done, it just hasn't come up. But how can they pay me back? Am I going to be stuck in this deal for 3 to 5 years when they're telling me they need 12 months? So it's just things like that. My number one is the exit strategy. I really need to know how are they planning to pay me back? And then, is this deal realistic? Because some cities make sense, some cities don't make sense. And people will find too that some banks will not lend in certain areas. So I guess we're kind of like a smaller bank with less stringent rules.
I love how you frame that, because in reality, you know, it's basically whatever the banks typically don't take risk. So when you're looking at a deal, you're looking at a development opportunity, a simple thing as, let's say, buying a sixplex or 10plex. If the leases are not in place, they're not interested, even though if you do some renovation, if you improve those buildings, you can make a fortune of money, right? So I think this is the space, really and truly. The fact that they don't do it is actually the opportunity for people like yourself, myself, who's avid investors looking for deals where we could really generate some wealth and share that wealth through private lending opportunities, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It does give us a great opportunity. And there's a lot of ways to get into that space so lending is actually, I call it the ultimate goal. I don't know if it's everybody's ultimate goal. It's definitely mine. I do not mind sitting on the beach, having a cocktail and having my money grow and pour into my bank account as, you know, I'm leaving a nice, generous tip. So, but exactly. There are different institutions for different types of lends, and we are, as individuals and lenders, a type of institution that also lends. And we all have slightly different criteria, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. So absolutely, opportunity everywhere.
100%. I mean, you know, you're sharing some really insightful things here. And I think, you know, let's frame it a little bit for people as well. There are people who would like to get into different developments and investments, but they don't have that sort of reach or the understanding or the knowledge. How do I borrow money from people? But then you have a whole slew of people, they don't know how to lend the money either, right? So, you know, I think let's look at it from the developer side or from the investor side. I need to borrow some money now. So for me, I guess, you know, maybe we can talk a little bit about what is the reach. You know, most people start with friends and family. Believe it or not, that is the strongest place to start with. And then I guess, you know, you can probably share with us, how do you connect to other people outside of that? Like, what is the networking like and where do you start?
So I know people find this very difficult to believe, but I am introverted. So I'm not the kind of person that's going to look on Meetup or any other sort of Meetup platform where they're announcing different types of in-person gatherings and go there and say, hey, here I am. My name is Kathy and this is what I do. Hi.
Yes.
So the easiest way is actually to join a network, and there are plenty of them. Also, Facebook has a lot of really great communities where people can engage with others. But even as introverted as we are, we need to take that first step. Nobody's going to look at us and go, oh, she's new in a platform of 6,000 people, right? Nobody's really going to know that. So I think a really great place to start is to just search out networks that can be joined, go onto Facebook groups, look at what people are doing, see who you want to engage with or meet with, or, just connect with. I think we as human beings have, right away, we have an idea of whether we want to connect with somebody or not. There's that
Right.
energy that either works or doesn't work.
Yes.
And so networking, I would say, is by far the most important piece to this entire real estate investing game, as it's called, whether we're lenders, borrowers, investors, whatever capacity we're in. I think networking should be by far our biggest priority.
Absolutely. I love the fact that you're sharing that with us because, as you say, you're an introvert. Like, how powerful a statement is that? Because you're an introvert, but at the same time, you have a love for the business. So you're ready to get into the space. But what I like with the framing or the way you position it is, I'm not starting in a place where I'm really uncomfortable. I'm actually starting in a place where I'm very comfortable, and I'm okay to meet new people as long as it's in the right environment versus, showing up at an event and, hey, I'm here, I'm Kathy, and whatever, So really and truly, you just need, and even for our viewers, you really just need to understand yourself, the people or the resources around you. And then, like you say, community is everything. And to your point, there's a lot of communities out there now that you could actually get involved with that can really help you propel that whole networking game. Because at the end of the day, people need to know who's doing what in order to be able to support the deals, right? And to your point, the deal itself is important because now that I know you, love you, trust you, I'm going to invest with you. The numbers need to make sense because on your side, you're under pressure as the investor now to make sure the numbers work, that you can pay the people, the investor, what you promised them, because again, it's your reputation at the end of the day, right? So you're taking on the twofold, which is the excitement of the deal, but just the number crunching needs to be tight. Like, do you find like with your numbers, you walk away from a deal if it doesn't work, or you try to make it work? Like what's the deal analysis that you look at?
I do not make anything work. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. No. And in fact, I have seen pro formas that make my hair go on fire because they're so blatantly padded. But as a new investor, I fell for those pro formas. I do have a couple of properties. Do I still have them? I still do have them. That weren't the best investment choice. Last year, I sold a number of units that were not. The little building was not a good investment choice. But I didn't take the time. It was purchased a few years ago. I didn't take the time to really do my own research and look at my own numbers, find my own numbers. I trusted that pro forma. And this isn't, I don't want to say anything negative about any industry out there. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we need to all look at those numbers and we need to verify for ourselves.
Yeah, I think to build on that too, it's really, numbers is based on interpretation. So somebody might be a little more optimistic on the end game or the exit strategy versus you being a little more pessimistic or realistic. So it's really fine tuning it, vetting it. And again, people, don't be afraid to question these numbers because it's interpretation at the end of the day. There's no right or wrong. To your point, when you look at it, you felt it was inflated, but in the beginning, it was like, okay, these numbers look super great, right? So you got to break it down all the time. And I think I love that piece of it. And I really want to capture that the analytics on your side, whatever you're presented with, just go through it. Make sure that you're comfortable with those numbers, right?
And it does take a little bit of experience to know that we do need to check things ourselves. And you know what? One thing I'll say about having a not great deal, whether that is because we didn't check the numbers on the presented pro forma or whatever it happens to be, that is literally the quickest way to ruin relationships. Because as an investor, if I'm purchasing from, let's say, a realtor who gives me a pro forma, I don't check the numbers, but it looks pretty, I'm buying it, but it doesn't work out in this way. What am I going to do? I'm going to hate on that realtor. But that didn't need to happen, right?
Correct.
The realtor is
Yes.
giving me the numbers that they believe are correct. It's up to me to go in there and, confirm.
Yep.
And the markets change. Maybe from the time that I closed, that might have been a 3-month process. So now the numbers have changed. How do I have another exit strategy for this property? Do I have another strategy for it? So if it was a long-term rental, now that doesn't work because the market has shifted. Can I go into the short-term rental space? But as new investors, everything is so brand new. We don't often think of all of these things, all of these different scenarios and strategies that can come into play because we're new. So that's where community comes in, though, and networks.
Yeah, you know what? The community, the network, people invest in coaching from other people that knows what they're doing. It's really invaluable because at the end of the day, look, you could literally get financial freedom with lending money privately, right? Imagine if you're earning 12% on $1 million, that's $120,000 a year. That is a salary in itself. And like you said, you can be on the beach making that money. So it's an investment in yourself. And really and truly today, social media, there's so much abundance in terms of knowledge around you that you can make this lifestyle change, that you can now find opportunities that it was never existent for many of us because we just didn't know what we didn't know, right? So today now you're in a space where it's all about, hey, you know what? Here's an opportunity. Here's a development. Here's somebody else doing something besides the big boys who kind of control that big upper side of the market. There's a lot of housing. Canada specifically, we have a housing shortage. We've had a housing shortage. Even though we're seeing the market shift in terms of interest rates going up, mortgages getting more expensive, we still have a shortage of houses in the market. So I think I love what you're saying is, depending on where you are in the market, by the time you make an offer or by the time a deal presents itself, also, if I'm building 10 townhomes, well, that may not happen for another year or two, right? So again, we might be in a changing market, but by the time 2 years roll around, the market is going to definitely change again. So I love your analytics behind the logic, behind thinking, let me just get in front of the right people. Let me start to know who's doing what. And then, does the deal make sense 2 years out? But you've shared some really good insights in terms of find people that can help you understand the analytics, because we just don't know what we just don't know, right?
Mm-hmm. And why would we want to make all of our own mistakes?
That's right.
People, those have come before us. They've made those mistakes already. Yes. Now, I think there's value in learning through mistakes, absolutely. But I believe as wise people, we would want to avoid some of the more basic ones. And oh, Mitch, I need to share with you that from the time, so I joined the Keyspire Network in February of 2017 and was an investor from 2009 officially. I was officially an investor then. But I tell you, after joining Keyspire, I realized I made so many mistakes. I made them all of them, including on paper, increasing my mortgage payments and paying weekly. All of them. So those kinds of things, I mean, it didn't harm anything. I mean, I ended up with a little more equity, et cetera. So it was fine. But then to clean it up, to be able to go ahead and invest further was a little bit more of a challenge because banking rules started changing and so on and so forth. So I think coaching, and if we look at some of the bigger players in this space, and I'm not going to name any because I just don't think it's necessary, but they all have coaches of all sorts, whether that's personal growth coaches, real estate, investing, financial, you name it. They're all in some sort of mastermind. Now, is that necessary to be a successful investor? I don't think so. It depends on what a person's end goal is. If they want to grow to, $1 billion in assets, sorry, we have construction over there.
Perfect.
That probably would make sense,
Yes.
but I do think coaching and networking and joining some sort of network where there's educational component is very important.
100%. And I love how the framing again, because at the end of the day, it's an investment in yourself. I mean, you've shared that, and I can go on and on with that, because in my corporate life, a lot of the VPs, the directors, the companies would actually pay for them to have that personal coach or the business coach. A conversation I had this morning with one of my realtor agent who does only multi-million-dollar transactions because he's into the commercial side. He's telling me, Mitch, I gotta go because I have my coaching call coming up. So people who are leaders in this space, they invest in coaching. I've done it as well. I've invested a lot with people like Jack Canfield out in the US and so on, because no matter who you are, you need that sounding board. You need somebody to frame things for you and let you know where your thoughts are going. And believe it or not, you excel. You do so much more in that environment. So thank you for sharing that, because I think it's absolutely brilliant. And again, I always commend Michael and Scott for doing what they've done in creating the Keyspire community, because what they've done for so many people just by allowing us to be part of that has been absolutely brilliant, and today we're talking because of that. So
I agree.
There's power in community, but the right community,
You bet.
Yeah, so you got to vet it. You got to take on the challenges, But let's say, Kathy, let's say I'm a new person. I've got $100,000. Hey, Kathy, I'd like to lend, but like, how do you do that? Like, do I just give you the money? Like, where do you even begin? Like, if I had money and I wanted to get into the passive world because I'm busy at work, my family is young, I just need to get that money working for me. What would you tell me to do, or how would I go about doing that?
Yes, just give me the money. I will put it to work for you. No, what I would say is, so for example, let's just take the Keyspire community as an example. There are many others, but this is just my known space.
Right.
I would say, look at what other people are doing. People are always sharing what their new deals, what they're buying, what they're looking at,
Yes.
what they're doing, and see if any of that resonates with you. Do you want to get into the the development space, or do you prefer to have just a very quick flip, to have your money working on a very quick flip?
Yeah.
Once you've discovered what sort of piques your interest, I would take that to my coach. Go to your coach, let them know what it is that's kind of piqued your interest, have a conversation. Is this something that I can, invest my money into? Will it work for me with my goals, my values, what have you? And that's really where I would start. I would start with looking for what would be interesting to me, because even if you're just putting money, and sorry, I should rephrase that. If you are the lender putting money into a project, let's say, you're still involved in that project. Can you imagine being involved for an entire year on a project you can't bear to listen about? So find something you like.
Yes.
And that you could be potentially passionate about. Maybe you want to learn as a lender from that borrower what they're doing, what their strategy is. I would just say find something that you like and then go to your coach or discuss it with somebody that's been an investor for a little bit longer than you. So, you can both go through the deal or the strategy or whatever and start there. And do not give your money to the first person you talk to unless it makes sense afterwards.
That's it. That's absolutely correct in the sense that, align your strategy to the ones that you love. Because again, if you like land development, you'll get into that. If you want to do quick flips, you can get into that. if you want to do major renovations or conversions, there's so much strategies in real estate. And again, once you're exposed to it and you start seeing what people are doing, you can get involved. So you actually have the ability to choose the strategy that's going to basically get you excited every day. You want to know what's going on. Have they broken ground? Are they building yet? Like, is the framers there? Did you send me pictures of the truck that's offloading the material? Like, there's so much fun things you can do while your money is working for you. So it's about excitement. And also just remember that all of this is working towards your goal, your end game. Like, is it, you want a certain income amount in order to get to your lifestyle freedom day? Is traveling your thing? So you just want to put money to work and go see the world? Do you just want to be able to spend time with the kids? Maybe you want to build a swimming pool and you've planned that you're going to get that passively because money in the bank or debt equity in the house does nothing for you. Put it to work, right? But these are things where it's easy for you and I to talk about it, but for people coming into the space, you got to understand, well, debt equity, what is that? How do I access it? Then, how do I reach people who can invest it for me? But at the same time, I like the person and I can work with them, right? So I think
risk tolerance as
risk
well.
tolerance is huge. Absolutely.
Yes.
Please explain that further for us.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to lend their money, they need to decide what would help them to sleep at night. If unsecured lending is something that is going to cause friction in their relationship or cause them to be stressed out and anxious until the day that money gets back into their account, that is not a good strategy for them at all. If they've had a horrible experience with a renovation and they now have a bit of a bad attitude towards renovations, that is not a good strategy to get into because they're going to hate on that renovation. So what do you need to be in first position? It's going to be a lower interest rate. It might be a longer term lend. But if that's something that it works with your goals and your values and helps you be well rested, then that makes perfect sense. It's not worth 14, 18 or whatever percent if you're going to lose your life due to stress.
100%.
So, right,
Yeah.
just figure out, okay, what is my risk tolerance on a scale of 1 to 10? Am I good with a second mortgage, a third mortgage? Am I good with a brand new person I've never met, but my sister-in-law says they're amazing and she's invested with them for 22 years? We just have to really visit all of those different scenarios and figure out where our comfort level lies. And let me just touch on comfort level. I see these posts all the time, and no offense meant to anybody about stepping out of your comfort zone, that's learning, etc.
Right.
I respectfully disagree. I truly believe, and for me, I've been out of my comfort zone? Absolutely. But I fell into it accidentally being in my comfort zone because I go to things that are in my comfort zone and then just gently push out. I don't just dive into discomfort out of my comfort zone.
Mhm.
I would never want to do anything if I was constantly in discomfort and in fear and all of that, and trying to get over all of that. So it's not really necessary to dive off a building if you have like the world's worst fear of heights. Don't do that. Don't do that. Maybe go and jump off 3 steps first. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, totally. I get that, and I'm smiling again because here's the way I approach a lot of things for people that I work with or that I help in coaching and stuff. You really got to create a bridge plan. You got to know how you're going to get across that river, right?
I
You
love
don't
it.
jump in and hope to swim. You really got to get a plan in place that allows you to see the footprint and also get people around you so that if you do take the plunge, there's arms, there's rope, there's a lot of things to help you pull out of that, right? So I love the fact that you're
Absolutely.
sharing that. I think really and truly it's about being a calculated risk. But to your point, we're all emotional beings. So, your conscience, your sleep, these are good indicators for you. When you're in that comfort zone, especially when you're lent into a particular project, you're feeling excitement. That's a good thing. You're feeling dread or scared. Yeah, that's something you gotta really consider, because you don't want to go into that space. You always have to be comfortable with the decision you're making. So don't be rash. Step back, take your time. So I love the fact that you're sharing that as well, because a lot of people get impatient in the beginning. They take the action, then they're stuck for 2 or 3 years, because sometimes these projects can take that long. And now they're fuming. They're like, when am I getting back? When am I getting back? Right. So
Exactly.
yeah, so make sure, because it's a relationship thing. We talked about networking. It's a relationship thing. You got to sync with each other, because if you're not feeling the vibes, then even for you borrowing on your project, don't take people that you're not connecting with. So it's two-sided. And don't lend to people that you're not connecting with, because it's a long-term relationship. You're going to be having conversations for the next 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, right?
At least, right? I heard somebody in the Keyspire world say, if you wouldn't have dinner with them, do not invest with them. And honestly, I think that is brilliant. It could be the best deal on the planet. Now we're talking personal lens for, within our networks, et cetera. I'm not talking about big REITs and things like that, because obviously you're not going to be having dinner with the CEO or COO of that REIT. So, or maybe you could.
Well, yeah, but we're talking friends and family.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. And look, you're absolutely right. Sharing, breaking bread, having those conversations with people at an intimate level really establishes you as well, and from a relationship perspective. And you can ask questions about your deals, your experiences, and really get to know each other. That's the beauty with these smaller scale opportunities, where you can build a house, build 2 houses, build 10 houses, 10 townhomes, let's say. You're not into the huge projects where it's subdivision developments and it's mega dollars involved. That's a whole different level. That's for another time and another podcast episode.
Yep. I'm
But-
sure you're not referring to my souk project with my beautiful partners. It's not really a subdivision. It's just a small portion of the community, and super exciting.
And that's it. Like, you are also in that space of, not only are you doing the renovations or the buy and hold, but you're doing development as well, right? And you offer people opportunities to come work with you or your group, which I think is absolutely brilliant. If
Thank you.
tell us a little bit about some of the cool deals that you look for on the development side.
Oh, well, the coolest deal is the souk one, and it actually happened in the coolest way possible. So Chris and Sari and I have been friends for a few years now, probably 4 or 5 years, maybe longer now. I don't know. My time frames never are never
Going too quickly.
Oh my gosh, yes, and I was in Victoria in December of 2020, renovating a condo, turning that condo into my executive furnished rental. And Sari and I met, had coffee. She was showing me around souk, and we saw a few actually, there was quite a few at that time, pieces of land for development for sale there. And we drove by this one, and I remember asking her, hey, how does somebody do that? That looks like it would be a really cool thing. Not thinking I would ever do that. I was just curious, what the process looks like.
Nice.
And Sari Ringma, for those people that know her, she's just like this laid back, lovely, anything is possible kind of a gal, which is so up my alley. She says to me, you just get 5 or 6 people together and you just do it. And I thought, it's that easy. So I called up our other partners, Jim and Sherry. They came over to souk and we all had lunch, Chris, Sari, Jim, Sherry, and I. And literally right then and there started talking about that particular property that I had asked Sari about, and Sari and I chatted about. I call it the Vegas drive-through partnership. And we fell into roles. So it happened that quickly because we all had different gifts, the energy. It was sort of like this symbiotic thing that just happened because it was the right thing. And we
Beautiful.
all have different roles to take on. It's
Yes.
a pretty big development.
Mhm.
Chris has a lot of experience now in the souk world. So sometimes it just happens like that. But point being is that I'd known Chris and Sari for quite a while. I knew Jim and Sherry for about a year, I think, at that point in time. The two of them, or the four of them, I guess, they knew of each other, but didn't really know each other. So
Right.
I was the connector there, but it worked out. And
Mhm.
so now we're in development permit stage. So a
Beautiful.
lot of really exciting processes and stages, and yeah, so
Wonderful.
that's the big one we're doing right now. I've done a few projects while things were percolating with that souk project, but I
Right.
haven't taken on other development projects. I'm just not in, I guess my comfort level is doing one at a time.
Especially when it's of that size, because to your point is like you went from a question around it to actually being in it. And I've seen some of the pictures as well for the area and so on. So I think it's absolutely brilliant what you're doing.
Thank
And
you.
these things take time. Like we say, you come into a project, it could run you 2 or 3 years, simply because it just takes time to build these things. But what you're building, the fact that you're part of it, the fact that you're adding to the community, you're providing homes, there's so much plus, 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 plus that's far more valuable than the money that you're making. I think the money is just a byproduct of the fact that we need money in order to enjoy the lifestyle. But I think the plus, plus, plus community building, homes, the beauty in the homes, to me, that's the win. That's the thing you drive by every day and you look at it and say, you know what, I helped build that, right? So, and I think we need to talk about that too, because in real estate, everybody starts off the conversation with mainly the money. Where's the money? How much is the interest? But think about it. What are you doing? You're developing a country. You're adding value. You're providing homes. Some people are very fixated on certain strategies for them. Like, I want to be green. I want my homes that I build to be green because I want to make sure this planet is around for a long time. And so those valuable things, they live on forever. The money's going to come, go in the bank, probably reinvest it, or you're going to buy the car, whatever you're going to do. But the longevity is in the beauty of what you're creating. And I mean, you love housing. I love housing. We invest in different strategies because it lights up our world, right? So we can get lifestyle. But I think the biggest thing for that is you're supporting the place that you call home.
Exactly. And, just to expand a tiny little bit on what you're saying, I've always said that money is not my currency. It is definitely not my children's currency. I've never been able to bribe them with money. It just has never worked. They love it. We all love it. We love a nice, luxurious lifestyle, but it's definitely not our currency. And so with our souk project, for example, we've been really careful to work with the city. And maybe careful is not the right word, but just wanting that relationship. I know Chris and Sari have built it over the last few years. And so when we needed to negotiate, the city wanted a piece of our land. And so Chris went in with his masterful negotiation skills.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Sari was right there by his side. But, he was able to negotiate with the city. And so we got what we wanted. The city is getting what they want. It really is, coming full circle. We started off talking about relationships. We're talking about relationships again.
Yes.
I always say, can you imagine being a jerk with the city? Do you think that project is going to go smoothly? Not likely.
Oh, that's
right?
right.
Not likely.
That's right.
So you're going to be a jerk to them. They're going to be a jerk back, but let's see how we can work together. And so in the end, we did end up getting what made sense for us in our project. The city recognized that, getting a piece of our property, that 10 meters, was going to give us some stressful moments. And they were really great about, I think probably Chris negotiated the greatness
Yes.
about just, making it a little bit easier now that we had the back 10 meters, I think is how it worked.
Nice.
But they wanted more green space. So we worked
Right.
hard on making sure we delivered green space, which is, we need that in all cities, enhancing the cities. The mission statement for our project is to provide a luxury housing experience at an affordable price for the middle income earner. We were very passionate about that because our lower income earners have some programs that they can take advantage of. Our higher income earners have some different strategies, tax namely, to further their lifestyle, but these middle income earners tend to be forgotten. And so we were really passionate about making sure we delivered a product for them specifically. And townhouses make the most sense. They're more affordable than a single family home. There's more space for a family than a condo. So they just made they made sense. And so that's what we ran with. And it's still, the project is still moving along. Everybody's still excited about it. Things are progressing as they need to. Yes, we had a little delay, but we're still progressing and things are getting exciting. We were picking out stoves or making a decision on what our stove configuration would be and our fireplaces. So it was that tiny little step into the design world.
Yep.
So it's very exciting.
It is. I mean, that's huge, And again, thank you for sharing that, because that's the exciting things that we're talking about that really makes the difference. And imagine, 10, 15 years after that project is done and you drive by, it's like, yep, we did that,
Yeah.
And it goes the same for everybody who's invested into the project with you as well. You're all part of it. So
Exactly. Or our grandkids going by there. Hopefully the project is still there.
Absolutely.
It is. It's that contribution. What was our contribution to society? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a large check. It can be volunteer work. It can be, infrastructure. It can be a multitude of things, but it's sort of, I think, a duty as citizens of ours to actually contribute somehow to the beautifying of our environments.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, couldn't say it any better than that. I mean, you've shared so much with us as well, I think that's a good note to sort of end it there. Once again, Kathy V, thank you so much for sharing so much insights in terms of the goal and information you've given us. So much nuggets there, from being a lender to lending to actually running projects as well. So thank you so very much for being our guest today, and to our viewers as well. Here's to wishing you great successes in your real estate journey towards financial freedom. Kathy, you want to say a last minute goodbye?
Yes, thank you, Mitch. Thank you. I feel truly honored to be invited to be on your podcast. I am very inspired by you and all that you do and how you contribute to this beautiful community. And I would just say to all new investors and experienced investors, we're all out here wanting to connect with everybody. So just reach out, because those people you think might not want to connect with you probably do. And the bigger this network and nicer network we build, the more successful we all become. So I do invite everybody to reach out to me anytime. I think Mitch is going to leave my contact information somewhere, and you can always find me on
you
Messenger.
Find it in the comments right below the video.
And thank you.
Wonderful. Take care.